Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing inspiration featuring the new Colorado craft company November 2021 Big and Bold release. I'm a big fan of the big and bold sets and images in these sets, and they are, as the name suggests, really are quite big and easily take center stage on a card regardless of the card's size. The cards I have for you today are all A2, but these stamps work well for other card sizes as well. Now, my favorite from this release is the olive branch set. I've never seen a set like this before. It is nothing like I have in my stash, so I was immediately drawn to it. As I hold the cardstock panels behind the images, you can see how big they look. The first panel is 4¼ by 5½ inches, so standard A2. And I also have a mini slimline panel to show you the different size. I don't remember the exact measurements for the mini slimline. It probably is 3¼ by 6¼ inches. I also love the sentiments in this set. I always appreciate when a stamp set has several clever sentiments that go along with the images. This way I don't have to hunt for an appropriate sentiment in my stash. The sentiments here read, "I'm sorry, this is me offering you an olive branch." How clever is that? "I missed your special day." "Hello, I'm so grateful for you." Another hello in a different font, and "all of you," which is a nice wordplay and sounds a lot like "I love you." Next, I have the Spice of Life stamp set, and this one features images of different dried up spices. You have sage, parsley, basil, thyme, and rosemary. You have a branch that you can use to attach the spices to and have them hang down. Now, this set also features some clever sentiments to complement the spices, like "you spice up my life" or "season everything with love and kindness," and "friendships are the spice of life." Next one is called the Grapevine, and it is another instant favorite in my craft room. I particularly love the sentiments here, such as "I heard it through the grapevine." So clever. You can use that on the outside of the card, and then you also have different continuation of the sentiment you can stamp on the inside of your card. For example, "Congratulations are in order," or "that you've been feeling under the weather," or "you're a year older and lovely as ever," or just something as simple as "happy birthday." And last but not least is the Charcuterie board stamp set. This is once again something I've never seen before, a very clever set. You have a large food board image and several sentiment options to create party invitations and regular cards. You can see how this compares against the 4¼ by 5½ inch card panel, so a pretty large image. And of course, there's a plethora of appropriate sentiments to go along with that image. Since all of these are outline images, I did a lot of stamping in black ink and coloring with Copic markers. Many different inks work with Copic markers. My preferred ink is Memento Tuxedo Black, and you'll see me use it throughout this video. Or rather, you won't actually see me stamping every single image, but that's the ink that I used. I also used my Misty stamping tool and stamped all of the images on Simon Says Stamp 120-pound cardstock. I love this paper for many reasons. One of them, the thickness, and the other reason I love it for Copic coloring. Now, I did some test coloring on a scrap piece of cardstock, and I noted all of the colors I used to color the olives. These colors will be used for most of the cards I'm sharing today. Here, I've colored the olives with various Copic colors. I wanted them to be at various stages of ripeness. I did not want them all to look the same. I didn't want to have just green or just purple olives. I wanted to have variety on my card. To get the highlight, I tried to avoid coloring the highlight areas, and then I used my colorless blender to push more ink out of the highlight after the surrounding ink was completely dry. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the coloring process, and we'll show you the important parts. I'm not going to show you the entire process, as that would take far too long. I started with BV08, the darkest purple for this olive, and applied it only to the right-hand side, next to the leaf. The leaf is in front of the olive, so it is casting a shadow. Therefore, the part of the olive immediately next to the leaf is going to be the darkest. My next color is V17, and this is my medium purple. I used it to extend the dark purple shadow and lighten it, and brought this color all the way around the olive. Next, I used V15. This is another medium color, and filled my olive a bit more, creating an oblong shape in the center. Here, I'm slowly forming a highlight. And lastly, I used V12 marker. This is my lightest purple, and extended the color a bit further into the center of the olive, but I still kept a part of the image white and free from any color, and this will create the highlight. I go back in reverse order and reapply the colors to intensify them and also to blend them further. And our first olive is done. My next olive is going to be green. It isn't ripe yet. It still needs a few more days of sunshine to turn that rich purple. I'm starting with YG93, and this time I'm going from light to dark. And that's how I usually color. I sometimes start from dark and go to light, and other times I work in reverse. It really all depends on the image I color and probably even a little bit on my mood. I'm using this color to map out the highlight. You can see I've applied it onto the entire surface of the olive and just left a blank oblong shape closer to the left-hand side of the olive. That's my highlight. My next color is YG95. This is my medium green. It is actually called pale olive. And I apply it heavily on the right-hand side of the olive opposite the highlight and lightly on the left-hand side of the olive. I then go back to the light color and blend. Lastly, I'm adding my dark green using G99 marker. This is deepening the shadow on the right-hand side. And notice I do not bring this color onto the left-hand side at all. I want to concentrate this dark, deep shadow on the right-hand side only. I go back to my medium color and blend, and this olive is done. My next olive is going to be half ripe and half green. I'll use both the purple and the green markers to color it, and you'll see lots of this type of coloring throughout this video. I'm starting very similar to how I colored my first olive. I apply my light purple, forming a highlight. Next, I add my medium purple and create a shadow using my dark purple. Next, I use the light green and add it onto the top part of this image, mixing it in with the purple. I add my medium green. I bring it a bit further down into the purple and add the dark green. This is G99 to create that dark shadow. I go back to the light green and blend, and also use the light purple to blend these colors even more. I reapply the purples to deepen the color even further, and that gives me a half ripe olive. I colored the leaves similarly by using markers from different color families. I used G21, YG63, and G94. I intentionally didn't color next to the black line in the center, next to that wane, as that again creates a highlight for my leaf. Similarly to the olives, I wanted the leaves to be different color as well. I used YG21, YG03, and YG17 to color the next leaf. This gave me a much more cheerful, vibrant green. To dial the color down a bit, I went over it with a G21 marker. The third color combo for the leaves was YG93, YG95, and G99. So identical to the colors I used to color one of the olives. I also introduced a bit of brown here using E37 marker to darken the shadow, and also E79. I love how the dark brown slowly transforms into the dull green on this leaf. I used these three color combos to color all of the leaves on this branch, and you can see this gave me a nice color variation. I colored one additional large branch and one small branch as well, and I used my scissors and cut the additional branches out. Now I did cut them right up to the edge to skip having the white border around these. With the images this big, you can easily cut them out using scissors. The secret to successful cutting is using a good sharp pair of scissors. Now, if you aren't into fussy cutting, you can always get the coordinating dies to help you cut these images out. So here are my olive branches cut out, and for a second, they looked almost real to me. I plan to layer them over the main branch and pop them up a little bit to add dimension. I stamped "This is me offering you an olive branch" in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I also added a white heat embossed hello. I embossed it on black to add some contrast to this card. I've foam mounted the branches onto the card and embellished it with sparkling clear sequins to add some sparkle. Here's a photo of the finished project. I love the way the olive branches look with the type of highlight that I tried this time, and I love the sentiment as well. Now I had one more small olive branch left after I made the first card, so I incorporated that into a bold color block card. Here I used circle dies from my stash. I'm sorry guys, I don't have the exact measurements for these circles for you. You'll just need to pick one that's about 3.5 or 3 3/4 inches wide. That would be the largest circle, and then 2 smaller circles that are about 1/2 inch smaller compared to the largest one you use. I cut panels from purple cardstock. I have dark, medium, and light here, and I used those to create a bold card front. I foam mounted my little olive branch spanning across the opening and added "All of You" sentiment embossed in white on black. Moving on, and next I have the Grapevine cards for you. In addition to the colors I mentioned previously, I also introduced a lot of brown. I used brown to not only color the stem of the branch, but also to add some brown color onto the leaves. The colors I used are my go-to. I started with E31, this is the lightest brown. Next used E33, another light brown. Next I colored with E37, this is my medium brown, and used E79 as the darkest brown. I don't have a lot of Copic markers in my stash. I have less than 100 markers in my collection, but I did build my collection over several years, and I'm still building it, of course. But what I'm trying to say here is that you don't need a lot of markers. You certainly don't need the entire Copic marker collection to enjoy coloring. I have my go-to colors, my go-to color combinations. I use them all the time, and I'm comfortable with them. I know the colors, I know how I can combine the colors, and I know what colors work well together. If I get bored, I then go ahead and spoil myself with several new colors of Copics, and then I start exploring the new colors and new combos all over again. I've noted the marker colors on the paper for you so you can follow along in case you'd like to copy or replicate this card. The big and bold sets from Colorado Craft Company are simply amazing for practicing your coloring skills. I'm not a pro when it comes to coloring. I simply enjoy the process as a therapeutic technique. I enjoy trying new ways to color with my Copics, and I always enjoy coloring new images. And the Colorado Craft Company images and stamps are on the top of my list for stamps that are ideal for coloring. With the leaves colored, you can see how I added browns and green colors and how that makes the leaves look a bit more natural, especially if you look at the grape leaves in the fall when the grapes are ripe and the leaves are no longer green. They have a lot of color variation to them and they start turning brown. I also colored the grapes, and here once again I wanted the grapes to be at various stages of ripeness. So some are dark purple and they are ripe and delicious, with some are just pale purple and they aren't as sweet just yet. I cut this image out using scissors, and what I did here, I also used a black pen and colored the edge of the paper. This helps to hide that white edge, and it helps to hide the fact that the image is cut out with scissors. It does take time to cut it and then color that edge, but it is the small details like this that make your cards pop. So I think it is worth the time and effort. I did some stamp surgery here. I cut one of the sentiment stamps apart to be able to stamp it a little bit differently on the card. This placement worked better for the card layout I had in mind. So my sentiment reads, "I heard it through the grapevine. I want to stamp the grapes next to the sentiment to the right, and here I used the colored grape images to figure out the placement. Once I was happy with how things were positioned, I placed my stamp over the colored image and I picked it up with the door of my MISTI. I removed the colored image and stamped the grape onto the front panel using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now, the reason I stamped the image onto the background instead of just foam mounting the grapevine on top is I wanted to have the tendrils on the card. The tendrils were too detailed to fussy cut, so I just cut them off, but I still wanted to have them on the card. So I stamped the original image in black ink and foam mounted my colored image on top, giving me both the fine detailed tendrils in a full gorgeous grape cluster that goes outside the edges of my card. I foam mounted the panel onto A2 white card base. I added some clear sequins, and that finished this card. Here are some close-up photos of this project. Now, if you don't feel like coloring the entire image, you can do some spotlight coloring instead. On this card, I stamped the grape and cut a portion of it out using a heart-shape die. I colored just the heart-shaped part and foam mounted over the full image stamped in black. You can also use another shape like a circle or rectangle, just something simple to pop apart the image up. My next project features the Spice of Life stamp set. I stamped several spices. I have 3 here hanging from a stick. I stamped 3 so that I could fit them on an A2 card. I wasn't sure about the colors for these images, so I turned to Pinterest. I always go to this website and search for ideas whenever I'm unsure, and this gave me several coloring ideas, and I proceeded to color. I used the same colors of markers I used before. Actually, all but last cards that I have for you today were colored using the same colors of Copic markers, and they all coordinate. If I am making a set of cards, I find that to be a lot easier to use the same colors. And if it makes sense, of course. So I try to stick to the same colors of markers for a set of cards that I'm making. I'm going to speed up the coloring here just to show you the main bits. Nothing special, just regular coloring and blending with 3 colors or with 3 shades for 1 color. With the coloring done, I cut this image out using a large circle die. I wanted the background to be lightly colored, so I used BV000 marker and added slight coloring to the background. Now, I didn't color every nook and cranny. I simply added color to the general open sections of this circle. I added some stamping. I stamped the names of the spices and then added a sentiment and foam mounted this circle onto an A2 white card base. My last card for today features a charcuterie board stamp set. It is such a fun set, nothing like I have in my stash. I stamped the image onto white cardstock and colored it using various Copic marker colors to mimic food. Now, when I look at this card, it reminds me of Germany, as this is the type of breakfast we had there while we were visiting Frankfurt. It was very delicious and very filling too, as you have so many different foods on the board. I've never had this type of breakfast anywhere else in the world before, so it was quite memorable. It is always a pleasure to create with the Colorado Craft Company stamps. I love how innovative and out of the box they are. Thanks for sticking with me all the way until to the end. Come back again in a few days for another video tutorial or check out some of my previous videos. Love you guys. See you next time. Bye.